Your first task was to explain what is the difference between a function expression and a function declaration. So the first difference is obvious. When we declare a function declaration, we use the function keyword with a name. The name may be omitted in function expressions, making that function anonymous, like this. In the ES6 version, it would look like this. But the main important thing to note is that function declarations load before any code is executed, while function expressions load only when the interpreter reaches that line of code. So if we comment our function expression out and we run our function declaration code, we will not get an error. But if we comment out our function declaration and run our function expression instead, we get this reference error here saying cannot access log hello before initialization. This occurs because of a concept called hoisting. Hoisting is what occurs when function declarations are hoisted or moved on top of other code. Function expressions aren't hoisted, so under the hood, our function declaration actually would look like this. The code is moved on top of other code. Let's take a look at another example. In this example here, we have a function called foo. On line 2 here, we are returning bar the function. And here, we have a function expression here assigned to a variable called bar. And we also have a function declaration called bar down here. Our function expression returns 1, and our function declaration returns 6. And lastly, we are trying to log out and call the foo function down here. When we run the code, we actually get a 6 logged out. Now, why would that be? This may be confusing at first. Why is 6 being logged out instead of 1? The reason is because, as we just learned, function declarations get hoisted to the top of the scope. So if we log out the value of bar up here, we can see it is actually a function. This is because under the hood, this function down here is really here, on top of the other code in this scope. So if we run the code again, we will see the same output. Bar is a function. Now if we delete this function declaration and run the code again, we now get a reference error of bar is not defined. This is because the function expression here did not get hoisted to the top of the scope like the other function did. We can only resolve this issue if we move bar physically on top of the code that calls bar. So let's run the code again. Now we see this time we are indeed returning a 1. This is because function expressions have to be explicitly moved on top of the code that is calling it in order for it to work properly. And that is the main difference between function declarations and expressions. You may be wondering, when will we use one of them over the other? Well, there are a few key benefits to using function declarations. It can make your code more readable. So if you have a long function, giving it a name can help you keep track of what it's doing. Also, they are hoisted, which means that they are available before they are even defined in your code. This helps if you need to use the function before it is defined. For function expressions, they are more flexible than function declarations. This means that you can create function expressions and assign them to different variables, which can be helpful when you need to use the same function in different places. And lastly, function expressions, as you saw, was not hoisted, so you can't use them before they are defined in your code. This can help if you want to make sure that a function is only used after it is defined. Okay, that sums up this lesson. See you in the next video.